Mario, I am so excited to have you here because this topic is a big one and one that probably the majority of my community and listeners really don't know a whole lot about, me included. So I know like a little tip of the iceberg about the knowledge that's probably, filtering around in your brain. But we're going to talk about water today. And people might think, well, that's a boring topic. Like, I drink water. I know about hydration, but it goes so beyond just drinking water. So we're going to talk about this concept of coherent water today, structured water, exclusion zone water, whatever you want to call it. And hopefully you can set us straight with what that is. But tell us first, start out by telling us how you got so interested in this topic and how it came into your life.
First of all, thank you, Shona, for having me. It's really my pleasure to it's always super exciting for me to share the science about coherent water. People kind of don't really realize what water is. It's like, yeah, it's everywhere. I drink it, it's all good. But people, we actually took a, really deep dive down the rabbit hole in water, and we realized that there are worlds hidden in it. Water is a broadband absorber, receiver, and transmitter of energy, frequency, and vibration, and therefore is at the very heart of life. Nikola Tesla, I would say the greatest scientist of all time, he said that if you want to know the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration.
Which who does
Water,
that? Hardly anybody.
yeah. So water is at the very heart of it. Water can exist. We already know kind of, the three states that water can exist, but we realized in our research that water molecules can actually create a very specific structures. Water can enter in what we call a liquid crystalline state. And in that state, when water enters into that state, its true power is being unleashed. I always like to tell people kind of a small story. For instance, if you just to kind of so that people can get a picture, an idea of what coherent water is. So for instance, if you take a light bulb of 5 watts, it will give you some light. But if you take a 5-watt laser, which is a coherent, focused form of light, it can drill a hole through your table. So the power is the same, yet how you focus those molecules make a huge difference. Our whole project, as I mentioned before we started the interview, is like 15 years in the making, 50 plus scientists over 3 continents working on it. So how did I get introduced into the whole project? I have always been very, very passionate about health and wellness. I always knew the human body was created perfect, that there is this extraordinary innate process in our body that can really treat anything that happens within. I was always very passionate about finding ways how to assist that natural process in a powerful way. This led me to I opened a natural pharmaceutical company, which I ran for years, and I helped thousands and thousands of people. And it was truly, truly gratifying thing to do, because when you're helping people get better and feel better, like there's not a lot of things in the world you can do that can actually create that kind of feeling. So after a while, I sold an entire project. When I really brought it to a high level, I wanted to kind of really get it out there. I sold it to Walgreens. And then I was really kind of thinking, I want to involve myself in a project that is truly for the highest good of all, something that will help humans, animals, plants, and environment as a whole. And it was really tall order, but as universe would have it, I was introduced to Dr. Eric Larker, the genius behind the Analemma, this coherent water. So our early research, we actually picked up a whole lab by famous German scientist, Dr. Fritz Albert Popp. He actually did a research in biophotons. So biophotons are these tiny particles of light that every biological system exudes. The more biophotons biological system exudes, more vitality it has. So our early research was in plants. And we realized when you put water in this liquid crystalline state and you water plants with it, biophoton emissions go crazy. So plants start to exude much, much, much more light. And there, for the first time, we realized, okay, there is something biologically remarkable happening when you use this water on any biological system, basically. But this was the first step. We realized that, for instance, tomatoes that were grown with Analemma water, they exude anywhere between 60 and 200% more light. So the vitality of those plants, of those fruits and veggies, really skyrocket. That's where we knew that something amazing is happening biologically there. This was just the first step. Then, we went into human trials. Then I really kind of brought to the whole project, I brought clinical research because this was my background. So human trials and everything. And we really kind of went all in there just to prove that something truly amazing happens when people drink this water.
Awesome. That is like, just hearing you say that again, it's hard to wrap your head around. And for up until a couple of months ago, I always drank filtered water and I focused on clean water, but the structure of the water, like I never thought about it. And it's so funny because I had my Analemma Wand that you sent me prior to the interview sitting by my computer. I'm like, I'm going to put it there so I can, pick it up and show it to if I need to. And then I was drinking my water this morning. I'm like, oh, I got to go and get my wand so I can structure it. And then I left it in the kitchen because I really wanted to make sure my water was structured. But all right, so let's go into that concept of structured water in the body, because I'm curious as to so what I've been learning is the more structured water that we have, or correct me if I'm wrong, but another term would be exclusion zone water.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that way. Yeah, I mean, exclusion zone water was the term that was created by Dr. Gerald Pollack. He came to that water. Jerry is a really good friend of ours, and water science community is kind of small. Everyone knows everyone, and we're all sharing our research. But I would say he came to a form of structure his own way. So we're not using his method at all. So he came to it, and our benefits are actually entirely different.
Okay, I'm glad that asked.
Which is so interesting when you see water can exist in so many states. Water molecules, colloquially speaking, join hands, and they start to move in unison. So it's not like usually, so this is something just to explain to people. In our research, we realized that water currently exists in what we call a chaotic state.
Yeah.
So it's still H2O, but H2O molecules, they move randomly. They crash into each other constantly. But since all of this is happening on an atomic level, nobody's really aware. That chaos has a profound effect on our health and wellness, even though we're not aware. There is a way where water enters into this beautiful, amazing, harmonic, liquid crystalline state. And then if you drink this water, then you have this really, truly profound effects. We were really surprised. And every single study that we did, we were always kind of surprised with the results. And it just opens so many pathways and avenues where we can go. Just so you know, we barely scratched the surface of the beauty of this water. And we're not stopping. So we can go into all of the studies that we actually did, not only on humans, plants, animals, environment, everything. We can cover everything.
Sure. Okay, so the structured water, you said in nature, it's typically unstructured and chaotic. Is it ever in a structured form where you'd find that naturally? And if so, how does it become unstructured in the first place?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Thank you for it. We can only hypothesize why that actually happened, but the way we kind of believe is that due to various electromagnetic frequencies, they started happening in the last, 50, 60 years, maybe less, but environmental toxins, all of this had profound effects on the state of water. We realized in our research that, for instance, if you take a glass of water and put it next to a Wi-Fi router, the water goes deep into chaos. But nobody's doing that research. We realized it. Anyhow, when you have natural water coming through a stream, you have this left and right vortexes, which naturally happen. And this, for the most part, keeps the water structured. But to find the actual natural structured water, we really had to go deep, like to remote places outside of civilization. And even then, when you take the water out of its natural environment, water molecules break and water goes back to chaos.
Okay.
So the way we see it, it was really necessary in some way or form to bring water back into its natural, powerful state so that people can actually get the benefit that the water was intended to give to every single one of us.
Okay, that's wonderful. Good to know. So tell us how you discovered how to, like, how did that even come about? So it's just so crazy to think. And I know that there are the studies about Wi-Fi affecting water, and people who leave their glasses by their phones, or their, like you said, the Wi-Fi router or whatever. It's like a dirty water, but you can't see it, so it's just hard to wrap your head around. So yeah.
All the just so you know, all tap water, all any water. We tested basically water samples from everywhere, and by far, I would say even almost 100% of water is just chaotic, and it's not harmonic in a way. So just so you know, there are several scientists on the planet that found a way to put water in some sort of a structure. They're using vortexing, they're using magnets, they're using crystals. We haven't actually ventured that path because we realized that water actually does enter into a particular structured state or coherent state, but the coherence lasts anywhere between a couple of minutes and day and a half. Then again, water molecules break and water goes back to chaos. With Analemma water, that never actually happens. It takes us 1 full year to create what we call the mother water. That water enters into this very specific state. And after it takes 5 stages, and once it passes the 5th stage, it never goes back. We tested it now for 7 consecutive years. After treating the water just once, it never goes back to chaos. That's why it's so extraordinary. It's very resilient and stable. And that stability and resilience, when people drink this water, definitely mirrors inside of our bodies in so many ways. And we are going to go in all of the details, all of the studies we did. So stability is very, very, very important there.
Sure.
It's a proprietary process. I can only tell you that it involves precious metals. It involves lightning as well in the process.
Okay.
And as I mentioned, when water passes this 5th stage, it never goes back. What we do with the mother water, this was the first application that we actually took out to people. We put it in a crystal vial, which at the top has the holder. So this crystal vial actually has 2 purposes. Of course, one, to create the barrier between the mother water inside and the rest of the water, because you need to swirl through the water. But more importantly, crystal serves as a superconductor. As I mentioned, water will always pick up I didn't actually mention this. Water is a broadband absorber, receiver, and transmitter of energy, frequency, and vibration. It will always pick up the most dominant frequency of its environment.
Okay.
And mother water is in very, very dominant positive state. So when you take this crystal vial with an Analemma water and submerge it in water and you start swirling, this chaotic H2O molecule that comes into close proximity to the mother water starts to mimic its exact structure, since water always picks up the most dominant frequency of its environment. And then in effect, after 30 seconds of swirling, you get a glass of mother water. And when you drink it, you have the effect. And now it's a good time to jump on the first human study that we did.
Yeah.
Since this water we call it an electromagnetic phenomenon, we're thinking, what's the most electromagnetic part of human biology that we can very accurately measure? It's our brainwaves. It's very easily measurable. So we did a double-blind study where we put QEEG equipment on, these are genetically identical twins. So it was so cool. It's a golden standard study. You have 2 genetically identical twins. What happens to one has to happen to another. It was really, really a peculiar experiment. So we put QEEG equipment on them. The doctor administering the water didn't know which one was which, and twins didn't know which one was which. One received a glass of Analemma water, coherent water, and the other one received a glass of regular water. So the twin that took a couple of sips of regular water, we saw no change. What you would kind of expect. all the brainwave patterns, everything stayed the same, just like nothing happened. But almost as soon as the twin did took a couple of sips of Analemma water, there was almost instant connection between the left and the right hemisphere of the brain, and almost instant harmonizing effect on the brainwaves. So this was really first powerful and irrefutable evidence that something biologically remarkable happens when people drink this water. What we then did is 3 weeks later, we repeated the experiment. Again, nobody knew which water was which, but we gave the Analemma water to the other twin. And we saw exactly the same phenomenon happening now with the other twin, while the first twin that took a couple of sips of regular water experienced nothing. So this was really powerful effect. Okay, something happens here on electromagnetic level. And we realized that this is the fastest. This is where Analemma water gives really fast results, almost immediate. And we did, of course, all the other studies which proved long-term effect on biology.
Okay, so let's go into what's actually happening when you drink the structured water. And back at the beginning of the podcast, you talked a little bit about how we have a fourth stage of water. And if we go back to most of us learning in about fifth grade biology class, there's only 3 stages of water. There's solid, liquid, and gas. But we know now, and this has been proven, I don't think it's widely known. I don't know how accepted it is, but there's actually a fourth phase of water in the human body that's like a gel-like substance.
Yes.
So maybe you can, talk about that a little bit and what happens when you actually drink the structured water. Like you saw the brain waves, like the difference in the brain waves in a positive way. But what's that structured water actually doing?
So now it's really interesting what people mostly don't know. We taught in biology class that we are 70% water, and we are 70% water in mass.
Yep.
But when you look at it from the molecular point of view, what very few people know is that 99% of all of our molecules are actually water. We only have 1% of other heavy molecule. If you can imagine, we are more water than the ocean. Ocean is less water chemically or molecularly than we are. That off the bat tells you there is something extraordinarily important about water, which people don't kind of talk about. As I mentioned, water always picks up the most dominant frequency of its environment. And when you drink this water, which really exists in this extraordinary state, all of your cells react immediately, which we proved through this double-blind brainwave study. Something happens almost immediately. Your entire system reacts positively. Maybe it's a good moment to jump in our second study. So what we did, since we saw extraordinary vitality, extraordinary energy being released in plants, we wanted to see what can we measure in humans that would be an equivalent. And we decided to measure ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is the primary energy currency of the cell. It's directly responsible for powering the majority of cellular processes inside of our body, including muscle contraction, nerve impulse transmission, biochemical reactions. Every heartbeat, every breath, every cognitive function depends on ATP. It is our cellular energy. So what we did, we actually did a double-blind, placebo-controlled study where we measured ATP levels in humans. We employed luciferase, which is an enzyme that catalyzes light production in bioluminescent organisms. And due to its extraordinary sensitivity, you can very, very accurately measure ATP levels in humans.
Okay.
So what we did, we took a snapshot of ATP levels in the study participants. Then they drank 1.5 liters of Analemma water per day without changing anything else in their world. They didn't change their exercise regime. They didn't change the diets. Everything stayed the same except the water they drank. And after 2 months, we took another snapshot of ATP levels to see whether something happened. And what we saw was 20% rise in overall mitochondrial energy of the body over the placebo. When you calculate the placebo in, that's almost 1/3. If you give your body a couple of percent more energy, real energy, we're not talking about Red Bull energy. We're talking about actual mitochondrial energy. If you give your body just a couple of percent more energy, it will be extraordinarily efficient, not if you give them 1/3. So the implications of that for every single process inside of our body is just remarkable. And most people aren't aware which organ is the biggest spender of ATP or of energy in our body. It's actually our brain. 25% of all of our energy goes to brain. So for one neuron to send an impulse to a neighboring cell, it needs to hydrolyze 1 billion ATP molecules, and there are billions of neurons. So you can imagine what kind of energy consumption happens in our brain and how much energy, actual mitochondrial energy. Just to emphasize once more, scientists now agree that one of the key causes of cellular aging is the decline in mitochondrial function. And with this study, we've definitively proven that there is a powerful increase in the not only cellular production, but cellular integrity and mitochondrial. So this was a groundbreaking study. It's going to be very soon published as well, which really proves that if you drink a different kind of water, there could be profound effects on our entire biology, and within only 2 months. So we're not talking about using the water or drinking the water for years. We're talking about only 2 months, and there is a profound shift that happens with that.
Yeah, and I see more and more people talking about mitochondria and ATP production because really at the root of most chronic disease is this whole system starting to flail,
Yes.
malfunction. So, I mean, it's so easy to just drink structured water, and it seems like it should be much more difficult and much more expensive to actually be able to structure your water at home. And you said this is 15 years in the making for you and all of that amount of research. But, you know, I have my little wand that is very affordable and the whole family can use it. And what I love about it is how you said, once you structure it, it's structured and you don't have to worry about like pounding your water down within 2 minutes or whatever it is. I was introduced to hydrogenated water last summer. And so I've been drinking that for many months. But that I have to be careful, like to drink within an hour of, pouring it because otherwise all the hydrogen is going to evaporate. So let's talk a little bit about the wand and then we'll go into the studies that we haven't talked about already. So the wand, as you said, has mother water in it and it's in a crystalline vial, very affordable. We will link it in the show notes with my promo code, but I know a lot of the answers to these questions because I looked at your website and I just did a lot of a lot of groundwork for this interview, but I know I was thinking of a lot of things like, oh, can I structure my tea that I drink in the morning? Can people coffee, alcohol, juice, because there's water in there. So let's just talk about like the really frequently asked questions around the wand. And I do have to tell you too, when I got my wand, it's been probably a month or 6 or so. I was stirring my water and my husband walks in the room and he is a total skeptic of so many things. Like he's a biology, chemistry background. He works in the medical field and he thinks so many things that I do, like my red light, my structured water, my hydrogen water, it's just a bunch of nonsense. So he walks in, he's like, what are you doing now? What is this thing? Are you serious? Do you think like that is some magical wand? I'm like, yes, it is. If you want to try someday, you let me know. But there's so many skeptics out there, I'm sure. And they're like, how is this little wand going to help me? But yeah, let's talk about, sorry, that's a little diversion there, but a little bit more about.
No, it's actually a cool diversion. You know what 95% of people immediately get? I'm going to tell a really interesting anecdote. When you can do a taste test.
Yes, I'm glad you brought this up.
Almost instant change in the taste, and 95% of people get it almost immediately. It's interesting. Dr. Mindy Peltz, I love her. She's an amazing doctor. She has a very accomplished sister. She has doctorate at Stanford, Harvard. I don't know. I'm not sure. But anyhow, she just like your husband saw you, her sister saw her swirling. It was like, what are you doing? What is this? And then they did a blind test. And 5 out of 5 times, her sister, the skeptic, said, well, this is the one. So we're like, how can that be? I'm telling you, something extraordinary happens, and vast majority of people can immediately sense the difference. And I'm telling you, since we saw almost a instant change in your brain waves, there is an instant shift in your biology when you take a couple of sips of it. So I understand the skeptics, and that's why we're doing so much science. All of the science, real science and real breakthroughs in science begin as blasphemy. And
Sure.
then after a while, if you do all of the you do all of the studies properly, then say, yeah, we knew it all along. But that's why we're investing so much into the science and going in various directions. We're going to touch more than several that we kind of touched upon. And the plant research that we're doing, it really is spectacular. And now, like in the beginning, it was kind of hard, but now most of scientific community already recognizes, because we did it the right way. They see the results, and most people are starting to do their own experiments and having phenomenal results with it. So I always invite people always to do their own experiment. I don't know, I'm maybe kind of now expanding, but it really is kind of a cool thing, something that every person can do by themselves. You take two basil plants. You water one with Analemma water and one with regular water. You do that for 3 weeks, and then you cut their water supply, and you can even increase the stressor, for instance, the heat, and you can just observe what's going to happen. We've seen this so many times. The one that was the plant that was watered with regular water is just going to shrivel up and blacken and almost die, while the basil plant that was watered with Analemma water is going to persist for such a long period of time. This is what we saw. The resilience of plants on Analemma water grows really remarkable. People have created jungles in them in their homes just with Analemma water. But it's just a small thing. I completely understand your husband. There are so many people that are skeptics, but that's why I always invite people, take a look at the science and have your own experience.
Yeah, I've started to water my house plants with it, but it's only been about a month or so. But I mean, we're in the dead of winter right now, and the heater's going all the time, and it's dry as can be
Hmm.
in our house. So, and have this plant on my dresser. That's the heating vent is like right next to it, and like 2 plants have died there already, because I think because of the heating vent is just dries it out. So I'm curious to see if this one.
Please do. I'm telling you, you are going to see the difference, but please allow the plant to be watered for some time before you put it, because it needs to absorb NLM water. Then you can increase the stress. We actually did a study that we're going to publish in Tier 1 scientific magazine exactly on plants, where we proved that the resilience to stressors of any kind just goes exponentially high when you water the plants with Analemma water. So we did the proper research. We actually did the latest fluorescence-based technology that can capture what happens in the plant on a molecular level. So we didn't just go on how the plant looks. We went in to see what happens on a molecular level, and results were remarkable.
Yeah, yeah, I'm curious to see what happens with it. I'll let you know. I'll follow up with you.
Awesome. Thank you.
But okay, so we have, I know at our house, we have like a reverse osmosis system that we had put in. We have well water. So our water tastes really good. So I notice like when I travel, like I'll always fill up my water bottle with like my water, and now I stir it. But I notice right away when water is not good, because I'm like, I have really good clean water all the time. So like water in plastic, yuck, and so a couple of weeks ago I was in a hotel and I was just dreading. I'm like, oh, my water's gone. Now I'm gonna have to drink the hotel water. And you could just, smell the chlorine and
Yes. Yeah.
but at least now I can take my wand, and it does, like, it's not gonna taste as good as my water from home, but it definitely makes a difference. So I love that you can travel with it.
Yes, and what I have to tell you something, people usually when they think water, they go to the chemical side of things and filtration. But I have to tell you something, since water is a broadband absorber, receiver, and transmitter of energy, frequency, and vibration, and always picks up the most dominant frequency of its environment. Even if you take the toxin out, the frequency of that toxin is embedded in water.
Oh, interesting.
And when you drink it, you're still introducing the frequency into your system. We're electromagnetic, energetic beings. We're not physical matter. Like science has now really proved this. But what Analemma does, it actually creates a clean slate.
Okay.
It takes all the negative frequencies out of the water and places water in its prime state. So just to do that, even if you're using it on tap water, you are going to have an effect. I always say it's better to take all the toxins out, but even with that, you are going to cancel the negative frequencies of those particular toxins when you're using the wand. That's why NLMA is so extraordinary there. I have to mention something, the effect of this water, which is much broader. Our early research was, as I mentioned, in biophotons. So what we actually did, we took seeds, just this tiny, tiny, tiny piece of life, which is very, very simple. And we watered some with regular water and some with Analemma water. And we monitored the biophoton emissions. So with regular water, we actually saw no big change. But with Analemma Wand, almost immediately we started seeing these peaks and valleys of biophoton emission. It's like the seed started to breathe in and out, breathe light in and out, but in a very long form. We were really surprised, like what's happening there? We couldn't figure it out, so we connected to other scientists. And after a while, we realized that it started to follow the tides.
Hmm.
So Analemma water connected this tiny piece of life to the circadian rhythm of nature.
Hmm.
It connected it electromagnetically to its relevant environment. And this is exactly what happens to people as well. So it's not like you're just, when you drink the water, you're going to be connected better within yourself, which we proved through the a brainwave study, that electromagnetically you enter into the state of coherence. There's this delta coherence that happens, but it actually connects you to your larger environment. So you're flowing with nature, not separate from it. And I believe that's really one of the key effects this water has. But we're doing all the other studies so people know you're going to get healthy while you drink it. But still, we truly believe that this effect is its most important one.
Sure. And that makes sense. And I've made, or I listened to a lot of people in the space who talk a lot about water, structured water, and the importance of it and how it really helps to hydrate. And they would say how like water has memory. I'm like, I don't understand that, but you explaining it now that makes sense to me.
I can tell you really a kind of cool experiment that Dr. Masaru Emoto did, and actually thousands and thousands of people all over internet. And I'm inviting all of you to do the same thing. He took 2 cups of rice. He boiled it. Okay, so the water enters into the rice. Okay, he boiled it. Then he came every single day to 1 cup and expressed all the loving, beautiful emotions in his heart: gratitude, love, and joy. And to the other one, he expressed very negative emotions: hatred, anger, whatnot. And after a week of doing that, the rice that had beautiful emotions expressed to it had no visual signs of decay whatsoever and had beautiful smell of fermented rice, and you could eat that rice after a week. And the other one was rotting. It has foul smell, and you have really powerful visual signs of falling apart, of rotting. And it was the same rice. The only difference was the water. Water picked up that particular frequency. So this is an experiment anybody can do, and it will let you know there is something extraordinary about water. I would even say that it has intelligence, because what is the definition of intelligence? If it responds intelligently to outside stimuli. Isn't that exactly it? How you treat it, it responds in particular way. Anyhow, just wanted to share that. It's a really cool experiment that people can do, and it will let them know that there is something really extraordinary happening there.
Yeah, I've heard of that study and I haven't tried it myself, but it would be really interesting too. And it just goes to show really how very little we know about the human body and the universe, and how everything, like we as humans like to, and especially the scientific community, like to think we know so much about the human body and the spirit and the soul, and it's just so, I feel like anyway, it's like so beyond our grasp, and
This, yeah, I agree with you 100%. What I love about this study in particular is that it teaches us why it's so important to be kind.
Mhm.
99% of our molecules are water. We're basically, when you look at it, very clever H2O. And this study proves if you send love, it stays there. It changes you. If you send negative emotion, it's going to do the same in a bad way. So when you understand this, then it becomes your responsibility how you're showing up for people, because you know that you are literally changing the biology of another human being in the way you're treating that person.
Sure.
So this is something that I really love, how water is teaching us something profound. Now it's good time maybe to jump in our second human study
Yeah.
that we did. It's a double-blind placebo-controlled study. There is a lot of talk in the last couple of years about NAD.
Okay. Yes.
NAD levels. Yeah. So, it's a cellular fountain of youth. NAD is so important. It's the thing through activating sirtuins, it actually helps DNA repair. It's involved in every single important system inside of our body. So it not only increases, if you have high levels of NAD, it not only increases your lifespan, it increases your health span, which is also so very important because we want to be healthy in later in life, not just to live longer and to fall apart.
Yes.
And this is exactly where NAD plays a huge role. If you have high NAD levels, you are going to be healthy and you're going to live much longer. So anyhow, we did double-blind placebo-controlled study where we measured NAD levels. It was we took a snapshot of NAD levels in the participants of the study. Then they drank again 1.5 liters of Analemma water per day without changing anything else in their world. They didn't change their exercise regime, their diets. They didn't change. They didn't take any supplement. Everything stayed the same. The only thing that changed was the water they was. And after 2 months, we did another snapshot, and we saw significant rise in NAD levels. So it really proves that just by drinking the water, you're powerfully enhancing your overall biology.
Okay, so we have, with the studies that we've talked about, we have the anti-aging, which right there,
Yeah, exactly.
okay,
Yeah.
boom, we have the increase in the NAD, we have an increase in ATP production and
Yes.
working mitochondria. Right there, it's like, wow. And I know maybe you want to talk about, or maybe this was the one that the glycan age study.
No. This glycan age is totally separate. So that was another study. Yeah, glycan age. What I love about glycan age, we wanted to do a biological age study. But what I love about glycan age is this group of scientists. They have over 120 published works in the glycoscience. They're the leaders in glycoscience, and they realize that through the state of glycans, you can very accurately perceive the state of health of any individual. You can
And this
very
is
accurately.
basically sugar in people's body,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But there are these anti-inflammatory and pro-inflammatory glycans through which you can very accurately see what is the systemic what was the level of inflammation in your body, and we know now that low-grade inflammation is one of the key causes of all the diseases.
Yeah.
And the other part is that through the state of glycans, you can very accurately see what is the state of your immune system. And when you put all of this together, then you get your biological age in contrast to your chronological.
Mm.
So what we did, we did a study where participants, we took a snapshot of their biological age in the beginning, then they drank 1.5 liters of lemon water per day without changing anything else in the world. And we asked the scientists, okay, what is the fastest that glycans can actually change in a significant way? And they told us 3 months. And we said, okay, let's do it for the shortest amount of time, 3 months. And what we saw after 3 months, that almost every single person in the study experienced anywhere between 1 and 12 years of biological age. So
Holy
this was
crap.
and this was again a powerful evidence. Okay, something really, really remarkable biologically happens when people drink this water. But where I'm really kind of geeking out on the microbiome. I love the microbiome. And people we like to think of ourselves as we're like single species, and nothing could be further from the truth. We'll live in symbiosis with trillions of these microorganisms, which are beyond essential for our health. People talk about human genes. There are more than 300 times. There are 300 times more genes, microbial genes, than human genes in human body, if you
Right.
can imagine.
Right.
So this equilibrium is extraordinarily important. The science has now connected the state of microbiome to basically any area of health. So we're not talking about just digestive health. We're talking about immune health, cardiovascular health, neurological health. Everything is connected back to the state of microbiome. Now people are talking a lot about serotonin and how it's incredibly important for our mood. And what most people aren't aware that 95 up to 95% of serotonin is being created in our gut and then being delivered through our brains through the gut-brain axis. Anyhow, I'm just I love the microbiome science, and that's why we did two actually double-blind placebo-controlled studies where in the first we were measuring the dysbiosis index of the microbiome. Dysbiosis index measures the degree of deviation within the microbiome, taking into account all the different bacterial feline species and their weighing factor. And we saw their 17% increase on the dysbiosis index, but more importantly, we saw sharp decline of a bad bacteria. And the second study, we saw exactly the same thing, sharp decline of negative bacteria. So this water actually creates equilibrium. It increases the positive bacteria, and it actually, I'm not going to say destroy because body is doing so, but there is not an overgrowth of bad bacteria in our gut. What most people aren't aware is that everything in our body is supposed to be there. It's
Yep.
just a matter on the.
Yes.
So we need everything that is there, but it's just a matter of the equilibrium.
Yep.
And this water has a profound effect in creating this balance. So we were super excited about these results, and it really kind of opened huge doors to what we are going to research next.
Yeah, I am very excited about that. My long-term listeners and followers know that my middle son has had very severe gut issues, struggled with ulcerative colitis for several years, and it was mainly an imbalance. I mean, we did gut testing on him, and it was just high negative, low positive. I mean, it was a mess. And it's like people like to throw probiotics at it or take all these foods away and go on these strict diets, which can be very helpful. But man, if you could just structure your water and the dysbiosis takes care of itself. I mean, I've seen, my daughter has struggled with acne due to dysbiosis. We've just got it, kind of all balanced out. And then she had to go on antibiotics for mouth surgery. And I'm like, no, no. And then the acne was back. So I knew it was in her gut. I mean, the acne was back within a couple of days of taking the antibiotics. So this is very, very profound, and so applicable. So how long with the gut dysbiosis, how long did the participants have to drink the water to see the changes?
This is the thing. We didn't want to do the short study. We did the study again it was 1 month. And just to mention the other one, which is really interesting, the second study that we did was crossover study. So actually one microbiome was being tested because every microbiome is like a fingerprint. So what we did, we gave and people, of course, and the doctors administering the water and doing the test didn't know which one was which. So at one period of time, people were drinking regular water without being aware of it. Then there was a flush out period, and then they drank Analemma water for a period of time, and they didn't know which one was which. And this is the powerful way to really accurately know whether something actually happens there. So we used various participants, many of them, and it was a single microbiome. It was a crossover study. That's where you really know that if there is a profound effect, and this is exactly what we saw.
Okay. And you said for a lot of the studies, it was like 1 liter to 1.5 liters. Have you measured different quantities?
Not really. We just kind of took it. I'm guessing that even liter would do, but we always, since this is the scientific process that we're using, we just decided, okay, let's use 1.5 liters of water per day. I'm guessing that even it can be even less, but just so you know, I'm not drinking any other water.
Okay, sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because when you see the benefit, you just kind of why to drink any other water because it's not a complex thing, you know. You just kind of swirl it and you have it. And we're actually going to be coming out with a water pitcher that has the analemma inside. So you just kind of pour the water in, leave it for a couple of minutes, and you can just drink it. So you don't even need to swirl. You don't even need to do anything.
I love that because I was getting to like kind of at the end, I was going to ask you about the implications, like, and how can a family adapt this? Because right now it's like you would almost all need, well, you'd either have to, make your structured water before you left for the day if you were going to work or school or whatever. But a pitcher would be really nice. And talk
Yes,
about the
but there
quantity.
is another thing that we actually came up with is the whole house system.
I did see that. I didn't have time to really look at how that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the whole house system is extraordinary because you install it in the piping system of your house, and then everywhere in your house is coherent water. You don't have to swirl it. But this is where it actually really gets interesting. So we wanted to see, since 99% of our molecules are water, and water always picks up the most dominant frequency of its environment. We were kind of thinking, what would happen if people would take a bath in NLM water
Yeah.
for 20 minutes? What would happen? So we
Yeah.
actually connected to Dr. Greg Lane and my dear friend David Perez in San Diego. Since they have the clinic there, they have the equipment to measure various vitals before and after. So we measured cardiac output, stroke volume, blood viscosity, and most importantly, heart rate variability.
Yes. Mine's in the tank
And
right now from being sick.
every single person in the study experienced an increase in cardiac output, stroke volume, blood viscosity, at the minimum rise of HRV that we saw was 30%. That was
Wow.
the minimum.
Profound.
Minimum. So the smallest increase was 30%. And you can imagine there were people that came with really bad heart rate variability. There was really kind of people really worried, and it more than doubled in very short period of.
That's huge. I mean, a lot of times
Yeah.
there might be people who haven't heard of heart rate variability or don't really know what that means. Like I have an aura ring that, it's not, I'm sure it's not 100% accurate, but I can at least see trends. And, right now mine is terrible because I've had a cold for the last week, but 30% increase in heart variability is
It's the minimum one that we
minimum.
saw.
Yeah, that's a
That's
lot.
the minimum one. Yeah, yeah. So this also again opened huge doors for the research because now we realize that if you just lay in the water for a short period of time, 20 minutes, there is extraordinary change
Yeah.
in all of your vitals. So this is now opening. We're now even thinking about the clinical side of things, where we can kind of arrange that people can come and take baths and do the vitals before and after. But if somebody can afford to buy the whole house system, then you don't even have to. You just install it. You open the faucet, and whenever you take a bath, that's going to be an LM.
So how does the whole house system work? Like where is it? Where's it?
It's a very similar system, but everything is within the device itself. So the water comes in, then it kind of touches the mother water, which is inside for the longest period of time necessary, and then it just comes out. And when it comes out, it's actually in the
And all of your faucets.
everywhere. Yeah,
Okay.
wherever you open your faucet, you get coherent water. You don't have to swirl it anymore. You don't have to do it. And the key element again is you can take a bath in. I mean, I always say to people, if you cannot afford it, what you can do if you have the wand, you can just, when you're filling your bathtub,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
just put the wand underneath the flow of the water. It's going to take some time. You're going to have to stand there for 20 minutes or whatever is necessary for the bathtub to fill, but you are going to have exactly the same effect like if you buy the whole house system. But with
Okay.
whole house system, if you can afford it, you just open the faucet and that's basically it. But even with the wand, you can get the benefit, the same benefit.
Awesome. Does that include outdoor, like where you would hook your hose up so that you can,
This
that,
garden dilemma. This is
there's
garden
definitely,
dilemma.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
we created for everybody who is growing their own food because with this we proved we haven't even touched that part of the studies, but
Yeah.
it's extraordinary. Nutrient density, everything about the plant is extraordinary. Vitality of the plant grows exponentially. So you are creating the best possible produce for yourself if you're growing it with Analemma water. That's why we wanted to create something that anybody can use in their own garden.
Okay, so the whole house system, my head doesn't really go into these places, but the whole house system would not necessarily be your outdoor hoses, like, or the.
It can, if you have it, if you have a whole house system for your house, and
Okay,
if the water is connected to your house for your
gotcha.
garden, then you don't have to do anything.
Okay, but there's a separate
You
garden.
have it, but there is a separate garden unit because people kind of have various
Yeah,
applications and various water sources. So we just wanted for people, if they want to use it in their garden to grow the best possible food for themselves, then they can just use it. It's very easy. You just put it on and you just water your plants with it, and you can see the
yeah,
result.
yeah. I'll have to think about that too. We have a garden and that we grow a lot of things in every summer. It'll be several months before we can plant anything. That would be, yeah, I'll have to think about investing into one of those. All right. Well, as we close out, let's talk about the implications a little bit and kind of circle back to some of those frequently asked questions that we didn't get to. So you can basically structure any beverage that has water in it.
Yes, if it has H2O molecules inside, they will form this beautiful liquid crystalline structure.
Okay.
So you can put this is actually what we played with, which is really interesting. We played with sommeliers where we took cheap wine and they've actually put it in a structured state, and it changed the taste profile so much that people thought sommeliers thought they actually were drinking much more expensive wine, which is really interesting when you look at it. So the taste profile changes dramatically. So
Okay.
any juice, tea, coffee, whatever you use, you can bring into coherent state. I always say when you are, it's much better before you are making coffee or tea, when the water is cool, then you make it structured, then you just heat it and do the whole thing. And we always kind of discourage people to use it in hot beverages because this is a very thin crystal, so you don't want to break it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. And then as far as the quantity of your beverages and the stirring, how long do you need to stir something for? We talked about the bath a little bit, and that's a little bit different and holding the wand.
Yeah, it's a bit different. But let's say this kind of glass,
Yep.
you just need to swirl it for, let's say, 35 seconds. If it's a like 1 liter, 2 liter pitcher, then of course you need to swirl for a minute or even longer.
And
So
the
just, yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
I was just going to say, in the swirling, like you had mentioned earlier, is basically so that you can get all of the water molecules rather than.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. I mean, you can do the same thing if you just leave it there, but the fastest method is just swirl it. So any H2O molecule that comes into close proximity to it mimics its exact structure. So in an effect, after 30 seconds, all of the water molecules form exactly the same structure as the mother water. And
Okay.
then you're literally drinking the mother water and having the.
Yeah. And I imagine you don't have like a set recommendation of how much to drink for every single person, because somebody like me who's quite small versus somebody who's double my size, people always say, oh, how much water should I drink? How much water should I drink? I'm like, how much do you sweat? There's how much.
Yeah, I know it's very hard to kind of but I would always say I only drink Analemma water.
Okay.
So but even if you can at the bare minimum drink liter of it, that will most assuredly create all the benefits for you.
Okay. We'll shoot for
Let's
that.
say most benefits, because the study says liter and a half. So but I would say with a liter you're kind of really golden there.
Yes, and I do like I had mentioned, like I kind of start my day with my hydrogen water with minerals in it, and now I've added the wand to structure it. That's kind of how I start my day on an empty stomach. And now I'm like have to like I have a water boiler because I drink tea. I don't like coffee. I've never been a coffee person, but I drink tea. I like put a little sticky on my water heater, like remember to structure before you heat it, because I can't, it's just not part of my.
Yeah, you need to kind of, it becomes your second nature, but especially when you know the bits, you
Yeah,
kind of You don't want to drink anything else. You just kind of, it becomes a part of it. It's second nature. You just do it.
Yeah.
But with the whole house and Analemma, you don't even have to. You just install
Yeah.
it, and then all of the water is coherent.
So one question I have about the whole house system, is that
Mhm.
something, so say you install it and you decide you want to move out of your house a couple of years later,
Very easy,
you can
very
take it
easy
with
to,
you.
yeah, very, very easy. So
Okay.
it's not a problem. We actually created it in a way that it's really simple to install and simple to just kind of, you just, it's very simple. You just put it with the press fitting inside your whole system. So again, when you want to leave, you just take it out, cut the pipe, take it out, and install it somewhere else.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, because I'm not sure if this is like our forever home, so you'd hate to invest.
Yeah, no, no
in-
worries. You can install it and reinstall it whenever you.
Okay, and it's relatively simple to install yourself.
Very simple. A plumber can do it within 20 minutes.
Okay, I'm no
Yeah.
plumber, but
Yeah, I mean, we always suggest it's better that the plumber
okay,
kind of
that's
comes
good to
in
know.
and does it because they're professional in it. But
Sure.
if, of course, if somebody is like really handy, they can do it. It's not a problem. But you need to know how to connect the pipes. It's a press fitting, so anybody who has ever done it will know. It's
Okay.
just very simple.
Okay, my husband's pretty handy, but I would get a plumber here. One last question, and then you can, we can talk about anything that we might have missed, and things that you really want. And we're just kind of scratching the surface on this episode.
Yeah.
Um, but have you tried it? I imagine the benefits for pets would be about the same. Like, okay,
Yes.
I'm going to be perfectly honest here. We had two dogs. One of my dogs just passed away a couple of months ago, but both are pretty big dogs. They're like, we have a sheepadoodle and then we had a golden doodle that just passed away a few months ago. But they won't even drink out of water bowls. They drink out of the toilet. And sometimes I wonder if it's because like they can sense those water bowls are very clean. They don't love the water, but I would imagine pets would have benefits from drinking it too. And it'd be pretty easy just to.
Most definitely. Just so you know, Dr. Eric Larker, the genius behind Analemma, the founder, he actually is a holistic veterinarian for many
That's
years.
right. I remember that
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Yeah. So he actually, there are so many people that, for instance, now it comes to mind that, for instance, one study that we did, there was one a pig stable that had huge issues with the sickness inside of the stable. They just couldn't. They spent enormous amounts of money. Veterinarians were coming all the time and trying to solve the problem through regular veterinary medicine. It just couldn't, it just, the problem never went away. We installed the system there and the pig started drinking Analemma water. Within a month, everything was solved.
That's
All
amazing.
of the sicknesses went away. So this is something, and you know what I love about animals? They don't have placebo.
No, you can't.
It either
Exactly.
works or it doesn't.
Right.
And we had like a lot of cases
Yeah.
now, and we're actually preparing a biological age study for animals as well, because we know that owners want to know if they drink this water that they're going to kind of have their pet friend for a much longer period of time just by drinking water. So we're actually doing a study on it. We will show very soon as
Awesome. Well, that brings up one other question that I forgot to ask you.
well.
Uh, and maybe this relates a little bit to animals not getting out into natural sunlight and being under artificial lighting a lot more than they used to be. Does sunlight structure water as well? And would it do it in the same way as the
Just
animal?
so you know, it's interesting that you mentioned this because this is where the Analemma name comes from. We realize
Okay.
there is an extraordinary connection between the sun and the water. Water changes electromagnetically every single day due to the position of the sun towards the earth. If you would take the photo of the sun in the sky every single day for 365 days, you're going to get this infinity symbol on the sky. And this sign is called Analemma.
That I was gonna ask you where the name came from, so I'm
It's
glad.
the power symbol of the sun.
Okay.
So, just like you mentioned, there is a great correlation between the sun and the water.
Okay. Sorry. I thought you were frozen there for a second, but you're not.
No, I'm here.
Okay, you're there. I was just writing a note down here. And
Mm.
So the sun does structure water, correct?
Well, I wouldn't
Left it
say
outside for a
it
month?
has an effect on it, but I
Okay,
wouldn't say structure. It
not
has
in
an
the same
effect
way.
on it.
Okay,
No, 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 no. So it's not like, of course, you are, if you're going to take the and sunbathe your water, it is going to have an effect.
okay,
We're not going to go in nowhere nearly the effect of actually making the water coherent. What we do.
okay.
But just so you know, it's really interesting. We always in the initial studies, for instance, in the glycinate study, we instructed the people, since we know that water loves the sun, to take their analemma and put it outside in the sun for a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
And after a month, there's this lady in the study. She has this garden, very kind of meter by meter, small kind of a box with very short plants. And she placed her analemma in the same spot every single day. And after a month and a half, she sent me a photo. It's like you drew a circle around the analemma. All of the plants around the analemma grew much taller, much higher than anywhere else in this small garden. And picture is worth 1,000 words. You really see it. Really, you can see the radius of the electromagnetic effect because the plants really grew much stronger. So yeah, there is an effect between the sun and the water.
Amazing. Well, as we close out, is there anything I didn't ask you that you would really love my community to know? I've learned a ton just in but I know, like I said, we're just kind of scratching the surface here, and this could be a very new concept to a lot of people. But anything that we didn't cover?
I mean, we covered a lot. I mean, my whole thing is we haven't. There are so many studies that we haven't touched upon, but most of them we haven't touched the environmental study, which really proves that water has a powerful effect on the environment as a whole. But maybe some other time we can go in because then it will just get really long. For me, it's just important that people realize that there is extraordinary magic in water, that people realize that they are actual water. 99% of your molecules are water. Even if it doesn't seem that way, it is so. And what I would like to leave people with is this is again how you know why you should not only be kind to other people, but to yourself. Because the water inside of you is going to store that energy, frequency, and vibration, that thought. So if you're kind towards yourself, you are literally changing the biology. Our science has clearly this. So just by doing that, if you will just change the way you feel and think about yourself, you are going to resonate in an entirely different way. And it will reflect on your biology. And water is at the very heart of
I completely agree. I know a lot of my clients are, excuse me, just
it.
getting over a cold, and we almost made it. But they think their bodies are working against them and they hate them. And it's just,
No, no, that's not true. I would say that we have this extraordinary machines. God gave us this. Our bodies are miraculous
yeah,
and they're going to help us tremendously. But the one thing that we need to understand is that's why I love meditation. When you meditate, you are harmonizing yourself with the essence of who you are.
yeah,
And when you are harmonized and in sync with the essence of who you are, your biology show it possible.
yeah. Yes. And there's so many in my community suffering from chronic disease. And we talked about how, in cancer, we didn't touch on that at all. I don't know if you have any studies with that, but that's just a lot of mitochondrial damage and ATP breaking down. So it goes back
Yes.
to that other study that you had mentioned on ATP. So I don't see a downside to using that. So we have a link where you can save 10% on the Analemma Wand. Very affordable.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
would just like to say if you want to follow our science, just go to coherent-water.com. You can jump on the newsletter. And since we're constantly doing new studies, this is where we inform the public what we're doing and what the results and everything. So yeah, this is the way to stay in touch if anybody would want to kind of learn more.
Sure. Well, thanks for coming on today and teaching us so much about water. I really think that this is going to boom very quickly. And people who are just kind of rolling their eyes at the whole thought of it, it's just going to become second nature within a short amount of time. I'm hopeful that it will
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah. It's very different now than, when we started. Now it's just completely different thing. So, and I was just being filmed on the Biohack Yourself documentary with all of the like leading physicians. So anybody in this space was there, and people were sharing their sciences and everything. And I got the opportunity to be in there and sharing the science. So I, just like you mentioned, it's going to become normal and well accepted thing in a very short period of time. It's already kind of getting very, very close.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to that day because, like I said, I have a lot of skeptics around me who are just kind of
Mm,
rolling their eyes. And I'm like, well, things I talked about 10 years ago are now just finally getting a little bit of attention.
mm.
So thanks so much for all of your research and again, making this a very affordable way to drink healthy structured water.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here. And thank you for doing exactly the work that you're doing, because this is what we need now, to have relevant and truthful sources of right information that people can truly help themselves. So thank you
Oh,
for
you're
doing
so
the work that
welcome.
you're
I'm
doing.
just like every time I get a new tool in my tool chest that makes sense and is actually studied and I can let my community know about, I'm just thrilled. So thank you.
Thank you so much.